You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. My name's Derek, and I am joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good. So kicking off the birthday weekend, spending the show with you. Get to watch my dogs play the Gators tomorrow, and then we follow up on Sunday with some fantasy football. So I'm ready to get this thing rock and roll, man. How are you?
You know, I cannot complain, and that was going to be my first order of business when we hopped in here, was to wish you a happy birthday, but you beat me to it. So.
Nah, just thank you. How about that?
There we go. Alrighty. Well, yeah, this is going to be a fun episode. Some interesting lines tonight, and there's some great props, some great lines on this one. So lots of fun, and we're going to run through them all. So really cannot wait for us to get into some of these things. It'll be interesting to see how that one goes, right? Last week was an interesting one. You and I are playing each other in the home league, this week. And quite frankly, last night did not get off to the start that I was looking for and or needing, because I had Mark Andrews going, and Mark Andrews is a big kind of cornerstone set piece for me. And him going down, granted on our story on steroids, he got like 16 points, but one of those that was projected to go up and get 40 to 50. So it's going to be a bit of a hard road to climb here a little bit. We're going to have to make some moves and maybe make some contrarian plays that we otherwise wouldn't have going up against your squad there, but it should be a fun matchup nonetheless.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's always interesting when our teams play each other, just because inevitably doing all these shows, right? Like we think a lot alike, right? We have the same feelings on a lot of different players, and really, it just comes down to where our draft spots are, right? And then what we're able to make happen in season. But it's interesting. I feel like my team's been underachieving. So I think you're still in it. Like I love the star power that I have on my team. But I don't feel like they've really reached their full potential outside of maybe 2, maybe 3 players that are on my roster here so far.
Yeah. And it was interesting, right? Like you and I were talking off air a while back that I was also talking about how I felt like my team was a drastic underachiever so far in the season, where I came to the realization that a couple of weeks into the season that my first 5 rounds of draft picks were almost unusable for fantasy. Because you had DeAndre Swift that was hurt, Alvin Kamara that was banged up and out. You had Russell Wilson, who I took in the 3rd round there. But we all know what's going on there. And then Deontay Johnson and DJ Moore, who both have drastically underperformed kind of the expectations, what we thought they were going to do. So my first usable piece in most weeks has been Mark Andrews, and then have certainly made some moves around and some trades and some pickups, things like that have kind of bolstered that up and allowed me to kind of flirt and be competitive in almost every game going forward. But certainly not the season and the start I was hoping for. But there is the back half. So that's what we're.
Oh yeah, I mean, heck, you're still in it. There's no harm. Plenty of room to make a rush. And the good thing with this home league is we bring 8, right? Like we are fairly generous with our playoff spots. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, right? But it makes for fun playoffs, because how many times have we seen the 8 seed upset the 1 seed, and it just kind of flips out the playoffs where we think one team was pretty dominant and they have one bad week. And, it just kind of goes through the gauntlet, because realistically our league, the parity in our league is really good. Like I feel like we have a very competitive league for the most part. Like I think there's one team that's probably truly out of it right now. But everybody else, so 11 out of the 12, still squarely in position to make a run here. If they can make some moves, if some of their players hit, I mean, you could see this thing look a lot different right now.
Well, and that's the thing too, is most of the time with the home league is it really takes a pretty big injury a lot of times, or even a couple of injuries a lot of times, to really knock somebody out of it, because this is one that league has gone on for so many years, and we've all kind of played against each other for so many years that we're able to kind of make the maneuvers, make some magic happen along the way. And while you're right, we are very generous from the standpoint that we allow 8 of the 12 teams into the playoffs. Part of that has to do with the fact that we have seen the 8 seed knock off, like the 8 seed has a higher win percentage against the 1 seed over the course of the, what I think we're in our 17th year. The 8 seed has won more of those matchups going against the 1 seed in the first round than the 1 seed has. Same thing with the 2 and 7. There's a lot of times that the 2 and 7 go back and forth, and I think right now the 2 and the 7 are separated out by
it's only like 2 games or something like that, isn't it?
2 games in favor of the 2 seed. So it's one of those that it's like 9-7, where the 2 wins over the 7 seed on that one. So even in the playoffs, there's an incredible amount of parity on this one, and that's really where with that league, as long as I can get into the playoffs, which I feel pretty optimistic that squad will be able to do it, and we can make some moves down the stretch to ultimately put ourselves in a great position for that cash and them trophies. But anyway, like I said, we've got a great show tonight. We're going to hit up all the different games here. We're going to go through every single matchup here, starting with the Broncos and the Jags, kicking off the early game over in London town. And we're going to go all the way through Monday night. We're going to be hitting up the spreads, the over, the unders, giving player props in there, all of that. And again, if you guys have questions, anything like that, throw them in the chat. Let's talk about those. Let's play around with some of these things and get you guys some lineups and get you guys ready, set to rock and roll and whatever you need to get going to try and pull out a W this week. You can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. And again, the best way to support this independent podcast, head over to the YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, and you can ring that bell, get all the notifications from when we go live. But Kevin, what do you think? Should we start before we start, I do see a question coming in here. So before we get into our first matchup, we've got B-Nep on YouTube. Cousin, Prescott's Carr, which QB this week do you like? Man, what are your thoughts on this one?
So I like Cousins by a hair because this Arizona pass defense has just been very, very poor. Very poor. They're giving up tons of yardage to receivers and tight ends alike. Pretty stingy on the run. So we'll get into some of this, but I don't think Dalvin Cook's going to be the greatest play, right? He's not going to hit, major home runs in this game, I don't feel like, but I like Thielen. I like Jefferson, obviously. I like Irv Smith Jr. in this game. And I think that it leads to the biggest upside for Cousins. Prescott in his second game back, going up against a pretty stingy Bears defense, right? It's almost like the Broncos. Rusher. Yeah, they're missing the pass rusher with Quinn being traded off to Philly. But he had only had 1 sack, right? So you're just looking – if you just replace it with pressures, you're basically getting the same thing. Roquan is still anchoring the middle of that. Schultz is questionable yet again. Gallup had a goose egg last week. Like, there's still some things that Prescott needs to iron out with these receivers now that he's back in. So I'm fading him just a little bit. And Derek Carr could be without Devonta Adams. He has had a real bad bout of the flu, are the reports that we're getting out of Vegas right now. So even if Adams plays, there's a good chance his snap share is going to be down because he's going to be just a little bit winded, right? It's no different than anybody else getting sick. You get a little winded, right? Your body has a harder time recovering in between those short bursts. So because of all these things, I'm going to go ahead and lean Kirk Cousins this week. I think he edges him out by a hair.
Yeah, that's and how I would rank that one is I do have it Cousins, Prescott, Carr in that order there. Cousins has a good matchup. Derek Carr actually probably has the best matchup overall on how that one could play out there, but I do think you're right. I do think that missing Devonta Adams is going to limit him. We don't know what Darren Waller really is going to look like this week. So it's going to be tough there, right? He's kind of coming back off of injury. We've seen him nursing that several times there. Hunter Renfro's actually playing kind of second fiddle to Mac Hollins. So this very well could be that the, your healthiest wide receiver and the guy that, has kind of been leading the target share of who's going to be the healthiest guy could be Mac Hollins. And I don't think that necessarily sets up great recipe for success there. Again, I think Cousins has a great matchup. Dak has a little bit tougher matchup. Chicago's been stingy, like you said there. Second game back. But I think I think it's very likely, though, that we see every single one of those quarterbacks we listed as a QB1 when this week's all said and done. Because I think that you're going to see Derek Carr kind of, inch his way in there to QB12. So just in that side, that QB1 territory. And I think Dak and Kirk are both in there as well. So very close, very great question. Thanks for throwing that out there, BNEP. And he said that he was leaning towards Cousins as well. So and then says, thanks, you're most welcome there, BNEP. So again, guys, you have questions, you have comments, you have concerns, you just want to say, hey, whatever, throw it in the chat. Let's talk about these things. Let's get you guys going, ready, set to rock and roll for your fantasy this week. But Kevin, let's go ahead and head over to the London town where we've got the Denver Broncos facing off against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are favored by 2.5. The over-under on this one's 39.5. What are your thoughts here? That's one.
I'm taking the Broncos in this one. I think this is probably my last-ditch effort with this team offensively. I still think this defense is beyond elite, guys. Like, I was talking to a couple buddies before my softball game tonight, and they said if the Broncos managed to just score 18 points per game, like just 18 points per game in every single game they've played so far, they would be 6-1. I also heard another statistic about this Broncos offense that they have to average 24.5 points for the rest of the season to equal their average points per game scored last season when we thought they were abysmal. Like, this is tough, right? Like, it is tough. Russ, we've all seen, the jokes and heard about, Russ working out on the plane on the way out to London, trying to make sure his body was right. Yes, people are making fun of him. I guess I at least appreciate the fact that it's giving off the appearance that he's trying, right? It's trying to get back in there. I think him being back in the offense is still better than ripping. It should help some things, right? And you need to get through this game and through the bye week and really just work on some of these chemistry pieces. But I'm taking the under still. I don't think there's going to be many points scored in this game, just like every other Broncos game this year. But I am taking them to cover. And this is my last-ditch effort for the Broncos offense.
Yeah, I see this one being a field goal game, right? The Broncos have been very close, very competitive in all of these games, and it has everything to do with that great defense, who has yet to give up more than 7. Has only given up more than 17 points per game, or more than 17 points in regulation in one game. That was the Vegas game there. You're 100% right. If the Broncos could find a way to get to 18 points at the end of regulation, every single game, they would be at 6-1. And it is really mind-blowing to think about a offense in which you have a guy with, Russell Wilson under center who, by all accounts coming into this season was still considered an elite level quarterback by many. You had an offensive-minded head coach that they brought in to fix the offensive side of things. They had a good wide receiver set, a good running back set, a good line, offensive line there, and you can manage to struggle bust your way to 2-5, and have it where a Denver Broncos offense with very similar pieces last year under Teddy Bridgewater was scoring more points on average than what Russell Wilson's been able to do. So. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's very tough.
It hurts to say.
It does, and it hurts my brain to try and conceptualize that and figure that one out. And unfortunately, that's just the case. But I'm going to take the Jags. If this thing was set at 3 or 3.5, you're right. I would be right there with you with the Broncos. I do think this is going to be a field goal game. I do think the Jaguars find a way to win it by a field goal. I do think you're right. I do think it's an under on this one. Not going to surprise me to see this one end somewhere in the neighborhood of 17-14 type of thing. I do think that Russ finds a way to get to his to a prop. I found one out there where it was 210.5 passing yards. I think that he does find a way to get to the over on that one. So I think that is a very realistic possibility for that one. All right, it's Spear IT.
Sorry, I guess you need my prop, don't you?
Yeah, hit us up.
That's like pausing there, waiting. I'm taking Cortland Sutton over 3.5 receptions. Last week, was kind of a struggle with Rippon. Judy had probably his best game of the season. Yes, he had the long touchdown against Seattle, but complete game. He was the most active in the offense last game. I think that we see probably Judy and Sutton both with 4 or 5 catches this game, right? 4 from Judy, 5 from Sutton, 5 from the tight ends, and 4 from the running backs. Like, I think that's probably what we're getting. And if we can get to 22 completions from Russell Wilson, as a Bronco fan, you're taking that.
That's a tall task, but you're absolutely right. If they can get to that, that is exactly where you want to play there. I do like that one there. Spear IT, welcome back into the chat there. Spear IT saying, what's up? Not a whole lot. We're just going through these games, man. All right, let's go ahead and hit the next one here. We've got the Carolina Panthers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons favored by 4. Over under on this one, 41. What are your thoughts here?
I'm going to take Atlanta and the over here. I think that Atlanta's pass defense is struggling, so I think DJ Moore it's a plus matchup for him, so he should have a good game. And Atlanta's, at home, if that really means anything for them. But I'm hoping for a Kyle Pitts sighting. But realistically, I'm sure Atlanta's just going to run the ball 50 times a game. But for some reason, I'm taking the over. I have a gut feeling on this, guys. Like, this is not science. This is just, I have a gut feeling that this might actually turn into kind of a fun little shootout where you look at the matchup instantly and you go, yeah, fantasy relevance kind of sucks in this one. Both teams are kind of blah, whatever. I think this one might end up actually being fun. So I'm going to take the over.
I've actually got the over as well. I do think that that these teams are going to find a way to just kind of beat up on each other. And it wouldn't surprise me to see it where both of these teams get to right about 20 points on this one. We've seen both of these teams get to 20 points pretty frequently throughout the season there. And with an over-under of only 41, yep, I'll hop on the over with you on that one. I do think that Atlanta pulls out the victory on this one. I would like it a lot more if this was about a 3-point spread, but 4 doesn't scare me off of that. Still picking the Falcons on this one. As far as the prop goes, I've got PJ Walker, who really, ended up showing out really well last week. Finally figured out that they've got a guy and a dynamic wide receiver named DJ Moore that they can get the ball to. And the prop that I found on PJ Walker was incredibly low, 162.5 passing yards. Atlanta's secondary banged up, and even when they're not banged up, still not a great secondary. So I do think that you're going to see PJ Walker find a way to get over 162.5 passing yards.
I like that one a lot. The one that I found that I liked was Deonta Foreman over 66.5 rushing. McCaffrey's in San Francisco. Chuba Hubbard's been ruled out. So Deonta Foreman's kind of the only guy in town. He had a good game last week, right? 118 yards. And I think there's a chance he sneaks in the end zone this week as well. So I like his prop at plus 66.5.
That's a good one there. And that was one of those that, like we called on the, I've been watching some of the YouTube analytics for the channel, right? Everybody is kind of jumping on and watching what we had to say about, these secondary third string running backs for Carolina right after the Christian McCaffrey deal went down. And, like we called it then, that Chuba Hubbard would likely be the third down back, be the pass catching type of guy, change of pace, spill back type of thing. And we would see Deonta Foreman really be the first, second down thumper type of back there. And that's kind of exactly how that one played out there. And we were thinking more of a case that if CMC went down and kind of calling our shots on that one when we made those videos all the way back, and that had to have been back in June, July type of thing. Yeah. But that's exactly how that's playing out. I think that's exactly how that's going to continue playing out here. And so in the home league was very happy when, I sat there and I saw the news go down. And I saw somebody hit Chuba Hubbard first. I'm like, nope, Deonta. I'm going right after Deonta and adding him there. So anyway, I digress. Spirit T asking, who's your team, Derek? The Broncos, man, hometown team there. And so gonna be a ride and die Broncos fan here, which it has been a lot of dying lately on the on that one there. But fun question nonetheless there. All right. Again, guys, you have questions, comments, concerns, whatever, throw them out there in the chat. Let's talk about them. Let's go. Let's rock and roll through those things. Next matchup, we got the Chicago Bears facing off against the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys favored by 9.5, over under 42.5 on this one. What are your thoughts here?
I like the hook here, so I'm taking the Cowboys and the over. I think they're going to find a little bit more of a rhythm here offensively this game than they had last week. I think Dak's going to be able to get some more of these receivers involved. It's going to be tough for them to run the ball this game, so it is going to be on Dak Prescott, but I think they find a way to do it. And yeah, the over. What is it, 42.5? I think they can get there. I think they'll give up a couple touchdowns, right? And then it's going to be on them to score the rest. But I think the defense is probably going to put them in really good field position, maybe even get a touchdown themselves to help out the cause here. So this should be a pretty good game for the Cowboys to, I don't want to say get right like they've been playing poorly, but continue to redefine themselves now that Dak is back under center.
Yeah, I do like that one. I do like that call there. I'm going to actually take the under, though, on this one. I do think – well, I'm with you on the Cowboys at least, right? So we're in agreement that the Cowboys find a way to cover that, even with it being a big spread. I do think that it is an under. The Chicago Bears, it's more case that I don't believe that they're going to find a way to put up enough points to carry us over on this one, right? So when I sit there and I think about it, Dallas is still trying to find their way a little bit offensively. They've been running the ball heavily with Dak having been out there for the 6 weeks. So Zeke banged up there. So I do think that you're going to see Dak throw the ball a little bit more so on this one. I think just out of necessity here, Chicago, I think has a hard time figuring out a way to, Justin Fields and will find a way to get some yards through the air, but not going to surprise me if we see the Bears rush the ball 45, 50 times this game, just trying to do what they did last week and the weeks before that, trying to run the ball and trying to move the ball on the ground. So I do like the opportunity for David Montgomery this week, but the prop I really like is Darnell Mooney to go over 42.5 receiving yards.
Fair enough. And I have Tony Pollard under 73.5 rushing. I think he's going to be used a lot, but I do think the Bears will be able to kind of stop them up, even with Zeke being out. Between the tackles is not as much Pollard's game, right? So I think we'll see him involved in the passing game, but his rushing prop looks a little too large for my liking. So I'm saying he's under 73.5.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that one. Spear IT asking the question, could I get anything for Chase? I'm 3-4 and I need to make a move.
Yes, you're going to be targeting like the first or second place team in your league, basically, right? You need to target someone who has enough confidence that they can wait his 3 to 6 week injury time frame out, right? So the Bengals came out and said they're not going to put Jamar Chase on IR. So they think that it could be a 3 to 4 week deal, not a 4 to 6 week deal like was originally reported, but I understand where you're at. So yes, you can still get something for Jamar Chase. He is still a top end receiver. So you're going to be targeting the power teams that are in your league right now, seeing if you can get them to bite off on giving up some of their power now in, them banking on the fact that they'll be just as, or if not stronger, when Chase comes back. So that's kind of what you're looking at here. And just kind of crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. Don't settle though. Like, don't settle for just, flex players or an RB2 or something like this. Like, I understand you feel like you need to make the move at 3 and 4, but if you win 2 of the next 3, right, and you get to 5 and 6 and you're in the hunt with these subpar players, that's great, but they will not be able to take you over the hump and really propel you into the playoffs. Where Jamar Chase, if you're able to absorb him being out and still manage to win 2 of 3, right? Now you're sitting a game below 500. You have Chase back. You're in the home stretch and you're off and running. And if I'm not mistaken, The Bengals have a bye week coming up, don't they? Their bye week is, week 10. Is that right, Derek?
That sounds right. I don't have it pulled up right now.
No, I'm pulling up right now. Sorry, guys. My tablet's running a touch slow. Yes, week 10. Okay, I was right. So he's going to play 2 games, and then you were going to miss him that 3rd week anyway. So they think he's going to be back after the bye week is essentially what you're telling them. So you're only giving up 2 games worth of chase. You need to make sure that you are – oh, yeah, it would be 500. Sorry. You need to make sure you're getting fair value in return because you're only going to be missing 2 games worth of Jamar Chase.
Right. I would agree with that one there. And like Kevin was saying too, if you can manage to get back to that 5-5 mark and win 2 of the 3, you're looking at a great position to be able to steal a couple going down the stretch. Bye weeks are actually probably going to be your you start making some contrarian plays, things like that down the stretch there during some of these bye weeks to steal a win here and there, right? And you still enough wins, you make the playoffs. So even if you don't move him or you can't find the right deal, right? Like that's the thing I would caution you against is, don't move him just to move him type of thing, right? Like you've got an asset there that isn't necessarily an expiring asset. There's a lot of optimism still around that he's going to be back for fantasy playoffs for you, and could be a piece for you to go down the stretch there. So, I would be looking to try and get some upside players there and get something to anchor, kind of help anchor your team through that one there as well. So see if you can't get a 2-for-1 type of deal to shore up some of the other positions on that one. So I like it. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, sir.
All righty. Let's go ahead and hit up. We got Monkey Knife Fight, and we're going to play some rapid fire here. Rapid fire is a fun little game that you can do. You're going to basically pick this or that. You're going to pick a player who you think is going to outscore the other one or put up a higher statistical number than the other one. And right now on monkeyknifefight.com, you can use the promo code GOBFF and get the 100% deposit match up to $100 by doing that. So our first matchup here, more passing yards, and this one's going to take place in the Rams and the Niners game. Stafford and Garoppolo squaring off against each other. Who do you think puts up more passing yards? Jimmy G is getting a 19.5-yard bonus for this one.
I'm going the Rams. Stafford will have more passing yards. Christian McCaffrey and with the Niners being a run-first offense, I don't think that's enough to overcome a 20-yard, 19.5-yard spread. So I'm still going with Matt Stafford in passing yards here.
Agreed. I'm all on the Stafford train on this one. Let's go ahead and head to the rushing yards. Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. Barkley getting a 12.5-yard bonus on this one.
Rushing yards, Saquon. So Saquon's
prop puts him about 81.5 rushing yards is his prop line out there.
And Henry's was like 99.
It was like 96, something like that.
I'm gonna go Henry. I think both teams kind of have a poor rushing defense, but I think the 12s in Seattle limit Barkley's rushing yards. I think he really gets them through the air. So with this being a rushing yard specific rapid fire, I'm going Henry.
I've gone back and forth on this one because I do think that there's a good chance that you see Saquon hit his over on his prop. And 12.5 yards is nothing to sneeze at there, but that, Henry's got such a prime matchup that it's tough to come off of that one. So I think I'm going to join you on that one and go Henry on the second one as well there. All righty. Well, let's go ahead and head on into the next matchup here. We've got the Miami Dolphins taking on the Detroit Lions. Dolphins favored by 3.5. The over under 51.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going Miami in this game. I think this offense, I'm surprised they're only getting 3.5. Honestly, the Lions have not looked nearly as competitive as they did last year when we felt like they were getting closer. And now it's feeling like they're taking steps further away. So I like Miami to cover the 3.5 in this game. I like the over, though. Like, I think Detroit's going to be able to put some garbage time points on the board and push this game over.
Yeah, I could see that one. I could certainly see that narrative. Detroit's been struggling a lot lately on the offensive side of the ball. Jared Goff, who came out the gates swinging and just looked like like the Jared Goff that we kind of thought he might be able to become when he was drafted number 1 overall, and even what we saw in flashes out there with the Rams. But struggling lately, and I don't know that they're going to necessarily get that thing turned around there. So I'm not overly confident that we're going to see Detroit put up enough points to be able to get us to that 51.5. Miami, I think, covers the spread on that one, but I do like the under on this one. Jamal Williams is a guy that I'm looking to take the over on his prop for rushing yards, 35.5 rushing yards. I could see him clearing that one. And this is one of those that we keep playing this where it's a game time decision for DeAndre Swift, and DeAndre Swift hasn't been suiting up there. So, at that point, if DeAndre doesn't go, getting in on that one now, I like that even more. So even if DeAndre does go, we've seen Jamal Williams, getting 10 yards or 10 carries a game. You're talking about him having to average 3.6 yards a carry. Like that is very doable in that one. So I like that.
I'm banking on the fact that Swift does play, and I'm taking him over 23.5 receiving yards. That's a pretty easy mark for him when he is in the game. So this is me showing faith that he's playing. And again, I think the Lions are going to be playing catch up. We're going to see a lot of this come the fourth quarter. So I think Swift easily surpasses this.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too, because my matchup against you kind of makes that a thing that I could use all of those DeAndre Swift parts.
Trying to help you out.
I like it. I like it a lot.
That also some bad juju heading your way.
Well, that's also the way that starts to be. I need to start looking through and changing all my props to players on your deal and calling for them to all be over just so I can swing the momentum for me there. All right, let's go ahead and head over to the next matchup here. We got Vikings. We've got Cardinals. Vikings favored by 3.5 on this one. The over under 49. What are your thoughts here?
I like Minnesota in this one. Coming off a bye, right? Had time to prep, basically 2 weeks for this team. Jefferson is seeing like a 30% target share, which I love being a Jefferson owner, and the Cardinals being very, very poor against the pass. So there's a lot of props in this game I like in regards to the passing numbers for Minnesota. But overall, I think we have an over in this game, and I think Minnesota covers.
I do think you're right. I think Minnesota covers. I do like the over on this one. I think they find a way just to kind of run away with this one, to be honest with you. But one of the ones that I do like, so even though I think Minnesota is going to have a great game, we're going to see the over. I do like a receiving prop for an Arizona Cardinals receiver. DeAndre Hopkins found that one out there for 67.5 receiving yards. We saw his return last week. Kyler certainly seems to have eyes for only DeAndre Hopkins these days and was just peppering him with targets all over the place. And I think that we see that one come through. So it's over 67.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I have Dalvin Cook under 75.5. Again, the Cardinals' rushing defense has been much better than their passing defense. So I think Dalvin Cook's going to have a little bit harder time getting the ball going on the ground. So under 75.5.
All righty. I like it. Let's go ahead and we'll hit up the actually, we've got a couple of questions coming in here. Russell Wilson's on waivers. Should I pick him up? QB is Brady.
Who would you be dropping for Wilson?
Yeah, that's really the
like
question.
I understand playing the odds and him rebounding somewhat in the second half. Like he can't play any worse than where he's at. So I understand the allure of grabbing Wilson, but who are you dropping? Like that's kind of really what we would need to look at.
Very much agreed there. Robbie over on YouTube just traded Deebo and Connor for Dylan and Olave Deebo, Connor, and Dylan for Olave and Waddle. Is it a W for him?
Yes.
Yeah,
I like that. Getting Olave and Waddle, I like that. Deebo's seeing that regression. Connor continues to be hurt. Dillon is non-existent in the offense. So I don't see any problem with this. Waddle is instantly an upgrade. And Olave, I really like what he's been doing here this rookie year. I have been on record saying since the draft class came out that Chris Olave was my favorite receiver in this draft class. And lucky for me, I've been right on this one, right? Like he's been the most efficient wide receiver coming out so far. So I like it a lot. I think you did great getting Olave and Waddle for that.
Yeah, I like the deal there as well, right? Like Deebo, likely to miss this week. In fact, I think he's already been ruled out with the hamstring.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what that one's going to look like coming back on that. Not necessarily something that we've seen we've seen these hamstrings linger at times in the season where, it becomes a 3-4 week type of process. Keenan Allen, we have yet to see him come back on a hamstring that he, happened week 1 type of thing. James Conner, again, very banged up on this one. Dillon, like you said, non-existent in that one. Olave, Waddle, like Olave is seeing just double-digit kind of targets there. And, it doesn't seem to matter who's in there, whether it's Jameis or whether it's Dalton. Both of those guys just finding a way to get him the rock. And Waddle has been next level again for you. So I absolutely love that deal. Great job on the trade there. Looking at it, it looks like he'd be dropping Brian Robinson for Russell Wilson. I would absolutely not do that. Zero chance for me.
Oh, I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it. I think Brian Robinson is going to see the volume here, but this Commanders team is going to be trailing more often than not. So I think Robinson, you're basically going to see 50 to 60 yards a game, and he's going to be pretty touchdown dependent for him to be relevant as an RB2 or even a flex in bye weeks. I understand Derek's side and the thought of, you keep it because running backs are assets and there's only so many that we're going to see guaranteed volume. So I understand that side of the argument, but Brady's had 1 touchdown in the last 2 games, right? It's the same mark as Russell Wilson. You're trying to figure out which one's going to catch lightning in a bottle so that way you have a playable asset at quarterback when you thought both of them would be in the top 10 by now. Like, I understand where he's coming from, and I'm assuming this is the same team that you were referencing earlier, right? So he's trying to make some home run plays. It's going to have to come from one of those 2 quarterbacks. But Brian Robinson is not going to be a home run play where he's going to finish as, RB 1, 2, or 3 on the week. Like, you're just not going to see that out of this guy.
Right. And for whatever reason, when I'm looking at the 2, I seem to it's stuck in my mind, Spear IT, that you've got a single QB league on that one there, which sways it more towards the running back for me on that one. If you're looking at a super flex, I could see going that route. Let us know real quick if that's a single QB or a super flex league, if you would. And actually, let me just ask you this one, Kevin, while we're waiting to find it out. Would that change your answer at all if it's a single QB or a super flex?
No, I'm still leaning towards doing it. Right.
Okay.
Like, I like the allure of Robinson to help you get through bye weeks, but I think if you're able to navigate those, he's just going to sit on your bench anyway. And quarterback, if Brady's the only guy in his roster, that's the deficient spot right now. So he's got to try and do something. I understand this.
Okay. All right. I like it. So a bit of a mixed bag there for you. But you got the reasonings behind that one as well, so you can make your decision.
And also, another guy to look at, he may or may not be out there. I'd rather have Daniel Jones. Right? Like, not knowing every quarterback that's on the waiver wire. Yes, Russ is the name that sticks out, but if you have a Daniel Jones, if, as crazy as, Matt Stafford hasn't been playing great, that team's going to throw the ball 35 to 40 times a game. So Matt Stafford is a guy that I'd like over Russell Wilson right now. So there's some guys who I do like more that I think you could further upgrade your position there. But overall, I still understand why you're doing it.
Okay. And he did say it's single QB league.
Okay.
I just saw that one pop through on the chat there. So, alrighty. ML, hey guys, thoughts on Michael Thomas weeks 15 through 17, smash weeks 1 and 2, only care about late season, not now or the next few weeks. Thanks. So really he's curious about Michael Thomas in the playoff range there. And the way things are going, I think that Chris Olave will have fully cemented himself as wide receiver 1 on that roster by that time.
Just matchup in general, right? Like, so 15 they play Atlanta, which overall I like the fact that Atlanta's been giving it up through the air. It should be a plus matchup for Michael Thomas if they can get Landry healthy. Obviously, the emergence of Olave, it does mean less pressure on Michael Thomas, so that should help if you're looking for a possible flex play that week. I do agree with Derek. I'd be a little worried starting him as my wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. Week 16 against Cleveland, I like that one as well. That's just fine. Week 17 against Philadelphia, I don't like that one at all.
Nope.
Like I don't like that matchup at all. I would be very, very nervous thinking about my fantasy championship matchup, having to know I need to play Michael Thomas against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, and I'll be honest with you, ML, in the home league, I've got Michael Thomas, and so if you're looking to try and go acquire him, either he may be on waivers, or that could be a cheap piece that you can get thrown in on a trade there, that you don't have to necessarily go out on. I've been actively trying to shop Michael Thomas for a while now, and trying to get a deal done for him, and the market just isn't really there for it. So this could be a great buy low candidate for you. As a flex play, wide receiver 3 type of play for your roster. So Jaden over on YouTube, thoughts on Kadarius Tony?
I like the idea of Kadarius Tony being with Patrick Mahomes. It's the fresh start that he apparently needed already. This Giants coaching staff did not like his attitude or his work ethic. Andy Reid's banking on talent, right? Like this is another guy who fits that skill set, and he is completely interchangeable with Marquez Valdez-Scantling or even Juju or Mecole Hardman, right? He's a quick twitch guy, decent route runner, not great. We saw that one great game he had last year against the Cowboys, which really put him on the map. But outside of that one game, if we take that game away from his career and he didn't have that game last year, would we care? And the answer is no, right? Like we saw the potential, and that's what we get caught up in on is the potential. So Tony, yes, I like the potential of it. I'm not spending fab money on him. If I have an open spot on my roster, I'm grabbing him. Heck, if I just lost Jamar Chase, I'm putting Jamar Chase down to my IR slot or whatever, and then putting Tony in as a fill-in. Sure, you can take a flyer on him, but I'm not starting him until he shows that he's going to be doing anything. And I'm probably giving him like a 3-week run, right? Like I'm trying 3 weeks. And if he doesn't show anything coming out of this Chiefs bye week, this one doesn't count, right? So you're looking at weeks 9, 10, 11. If he doesn't do anything by week 11, I'm cutting him and I'm finding someone else to put on my roster for a playoff push.
Right. And I, interestingly enough, I actually just added Kadarius Tony in the home league on that one, right? Like at the second that deal was done, managed to, he was out there, managed to find him, add that. I think I dropped a defense that I had been, something like that type of deal. And that was my same process that you just kind of articulated there, is I was going to hold on to him till week 10, see what that looked like. Potentially week 11 was the latest that I was going to hold on to him and see what that looked like before I dropped him and moved on to another roster spot there. But this is one of those that, just like you said, the potential is there and the upside is there. And for my roster, I need some firepower at wide receiver. So if I could potentially get something and get an upward swing, something like that, it's worth it in that deal. But again, I'm not going to be starting him. Certainly not this week on bye, certainly not in week 9. And, like he would have to really, really show me something in week 9 for him to even try and get consideration at the flex spot in week 10. So it's going to take something to come out there and really show that one. So he's worth an ad if you've got a spot, but do not drop anything worth, an asset that has fantasy relevance or flex type of play in there to go and acquire him. So ML saying that was solid advice back on the Michael Thomas deal. Thanks, guys. You are most welcome, sir. Spear IT. He went and was shopping right away on that Chase side of things. He just got offered a huge trade. Chase, Pierce, Diggs for Eckler, Saquon.
Nope.
You're giving up too much on the wide receiver side of things.
Like if take one of them out, take Eckler or Saquon out, and take Diggs out, and then Chase and Pierce for Eckler, or I'd want Eckler. Like that'd be the guy I think I'd want over Saquon. Yes, that's probably a little bit of bias towards me not liking Saquon very much, but I feel like you're giving up too much. The pieces around there are okay. Yeah, Diggs and Chase. How's your team sub 500, bro?
That is a very good question there.
Like, holy smokes. Like, I don't know that I'm doing this. Like Chase and Pierce for Eckler, okay. Jason, if you can get Eckler and like a backup tight end, something like that, sure. But I don't know that I'm willing to give up Chase and Diggs. I think I would take my chances because Diggs is equal to Saquon. That's the fantasy gods.
Yes, I just saw that comment as well.
So Diggs is equal to Saquon in my mind, right? And Chase and Pierce together, right? Because those guys, you're going to be starting those guys. That adds more value. Like Buffalo coming off their bye week. I don't think I'm doing this. A lot of names, yeah, it's flashy, but I do think that all three is too rich.
Yeah, you would have to get a good wide receiver back in order to do that one. And when I say a good wide receiver back, like I'm thinking somebody in the neighborhood of potentially
Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper. I would have even said CeeDee Lamb somewhere in there. Even a Chris Olave. Like I would be looking for something like that. And Chris Olave is like the basement that I'd be looking back on that one. I would be aiming higher. Somebody like the Amari Cooper.
Chase being down for 2 weeks doesn't equal Pierce, right? Like if for whatever reason you're loaded at receiver, obviously this guy's loaded at running back. So you're looking at Chase and Diggs for Eckler and Saquon. I think I do that deal, right? But throwing in Pierce is not fair compensation for only missing Jamar Chase for 2 weeks, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I would agree with you. Munir suggests any moves rest of the year. It's a half point PPR, 12-person roster. Carr, ETN, Walker, Evans, AJ Brown, Goddard, Chubb, Cooks, Allen, Sutton, Rashad White, Kirk Cousins, Bateman, Jamison Williams.
I think you can drop Bateman for anything better that you have.
Allen
Robinson's probably in that same boat. Like, if there's any way to upgrade at receiver, just in those spots, right? Obviously, Evans, Brown are there. Cooks could be a trade candidate. That's been rumored, right? So I want to keep a hold of Brandon Cooks and see if he stays with the Texans or if he's on the move again, because you never know what that might look like. I like ETN and Walker. I think you're going to be very happy there now that James Robinson is out of town. Cousins, I like the Cousins Carr combo. I have a couple of those in some single quarterback leagues. So overall, I do like it. I think that Bateman and Allen Robinson are kind of throwaways. So if you have ways to upgrade those two positions for anything better / more consistent for you, go ahead with those two. The rest of it, I think I like.
Yeah, I mean, something you could potentially try and do. You've got the benefit of Bateman having missed, a fair bit of time there, looking like he's coming back. So you can kind of spin a narrative that he, should see some upside there. So you could see about trying to, go after, a guy that's on the rise. DJ Moore has been targeted 9 times in the last 3, 9 times in each of the last 3 games. So something like that might be worth a play, trying to go out there and get Jacoby Myers, another guy that could potentially go out there and try and get him. That could be worth some of those moves, seeing if you could, get it, swapping Allen Robinson, Rashad Bateman for some of those guys and see if you couldn't upgrade there a little bit. Might be a little bit tough there, but I think that is doable. But as far as your core goes, I'm not moving off of any of your big name guys to try and go get other big name guys. Like, this is one of those that you're going to be tweaking some things here and there. If you're not a believer in the Broncos offense, you could potentially try and look at moving Cortland Sutton there. But yeah, that's one of those that I'd be looking to try and get wide receiver 2 or better back on that deal there. So that would be a potential move that you could also try and go out there and do. So that's kind of how I would look at that one. Any other thoughts there?
No, sir. I agree.
Spear IT random question. Does anybody know what Trace McSorley is up to?
He's
playing
holding
backup
Zach Ertz's jockstrap. So he doesn't block, number one. And Russ is already, Kyler's already kind of running around for his life a little bit. So
Trace McSorley's the quarterback down there.
Quarterback. I'm sorry. I'm thinking
Trey McBride is
Trey McBride. My apologies. Holy smokes. No, I think McSorley just has like a TikTok that 13-year-old girls like to follow.
Yeah, out there just kind of playing the old backup role to Kyler. So that's kind of what he's up to.
Sorry, right team at least.
That's true. You were on the right team. I did like Spear IT said he was so confused for a second though.
Yeah, my bad.
That's all right. We got to fix in the end there. All righty. Let's go ahead and head to our next matchup here. We've got the Raiders taking on the Saints. Raiders favored by 1.5. Over under 49. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking Vegas in the over here. I think this should be a fun game. Both teams a little weak in the secondary this year. So I think we're going to see a lot of balls thrown, if you will. So the linchpin, I think, that would make me pivot off of this is knowing if Devontae Adams is out. I do think I pivot towards the Saints. But all things considered, he's going to play at least in some capacity. So I like the Raiders coming off their bye week as well, I believe. And so getting to go down to New Orleans, I think this will be fun. A lot of points scored in this game. I like the over quite a bit, honestly.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do like the over on that one as well. And you're right. If Devontae Adams misses on this one, I think I am going to lean on the Saints, and that could actually sway me enough to lean to the under on that one. Again, with Devontae Adams being such a large part of what the Vegas Raiders do, right? Like 30% type target share thing. Like that is where the balls go when they drop back and pass. While Josh Jacobs has been phenomenal this year. Again, right, I mentioned that earlier on that if Devontae Adams truly misses, Mac Hollins would be a great DFS play at that point. Like that would be a great way to try and go that route. So there's a lot to see on how this one really looks, and that's going to change how some of my opinion comes down to it at the end of it. So when I'm looking at the player prop that I really liked, Alvin Kamara has been kind of showing up, showing out with the change in quarterback, him being healthy as well. So I do like Alvin Kamara over his 38.5 receiving yards.
And I like Chris Olave over his 66.5 receiving yards. Michael Thomas out again, and
Landry's also out.
Landry's also out again. So yeah, I think Chris Olave is going to see a lot of targets.
I would agree. Spear IT saying that he was in NOLA for the FSU LSU game, one of the best games that he's been to. We watched that one while we were drafting the home league, and that was a fun game to watch that one rock and roll through there. All righty, let's go ahead and we're going to head on in. We actually had our buddy David that was at that game there as well. So the small world type of thing when you got folks at the same place. All right, let's go ahead and head into the next matchup here. New England and the Jets. The Patriots favored by 2.5, over under on this one's 40. Thoughts on this one?
I think I'm drinking the Kool-Aid here a little bit. I like the Jets and I like the under. They've been playing very good. They're 5-2 against the spread. Defensively, Robert Saleh has them humming on point. Yes, they're going to miss Breece Hall, but Michael Carter can do the job, right? Like Carter did a decent job last year, and even the first couple games of this year did a good job. The Breece Hall just is slightly more talented, so that kind of took over. So I don't think this necessarily changes anything for the Jets. You might see Zach Wilson, throw the ball 3 or 4 more times a game than what he was with Breece Hall, but they're still check downs, right? Like those targets were just designed passing plays anyway. So Patriots got to find a way to get right offensively, right? Their defense got gashed against the Bears. I think Justin Fields had a lot to do with that in his mobility. You're not going to get that from Zach Wilson. So I think it does kind of keep it tight, which is why I like the under here. But I think the Jets find a way to sneak out of this one with a win.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Wilson, after coming back, has just he's 4-0 as a starter this year. Has found a way to just kind of win games, and more a case that hasn't necessarily been losing games for his squad there in a lot of cases. And we are going to see a shift happen a little bit with the Jets as far as how they're going to operate there. But I'm right there with you. I'm going to say that the Jets find a way. Even if they don't win this, I think that this is going to come down to a very, very tight game there. I do like the under on this as well. A couple of defensive-minded head coaches here with Belichick and Saleh kind of going at and grinding it. And I do think that you're going to see a really kind of a defensive struggle in this one and a defensive matchup here. Some good back and forth, things like that. Zach Wilson had a very good passing yard prop on this one that I really liked. So I'm going to call for Zach Wilson to go over his 176.5 passing yards. I think that this is very reasonable that we see him clear the 200-yard mark on passing yards.
No, I agree. The one I really liked for this game was Ramondre Stevenson over 18.5 receiving yards. So saw 8 targets last week. I think we're going to see him with another 5 or 6 this week. Like I do think that is very much in line with what's going to need to happen for the Patriots to keep moving the ball. So I like the 18.5. I think that's pretty easy for him to get to.
Yeah, I think so too. Alrighty, and especially if Damian Harris isn't fully ready to go, he's going to miss time, anything like that, like Ramondre Stevenson smash play on that one. Alrighty, let's go ahead and head over to our next matchup here. We got the Steelers, we got the Eagles. Eagles favored by 11, over under 43 on this one.
I like the Eagles. It's a big number, but the Eagles are at home. They've been playing lights out, coming off of their bye week. The new acquisition of Robert Quinn, this pass rush just got better, and the offense is still humming. So I like the Eagles early and often, and I'm going to take the over because I think eventually Pittsburgh might get a backdoor touchdown to help push it up.
Yeah, I mean, this one isn't going to surprise me that this thing ends like 33-10, 33-14, something like that. I think that the Steelers are just good enough that they find the way to into the end zone once or twice, and then probably kicking some field goals in there as well. So I think that they put up just enough points to help push this thing over. But I think Philly's going to be in the driver's seat here, ultimately pushing the scoring pace on this one here. So I do like Philly to cover. I do like the over on this one as well. Prop that I really liked on this one. Right, like I just kind of said, I think that Pittsburgh's going to be down a fair bit. They're going to have to try and pass the ball a little bit. We're going to see Kenny Pickett have to try and move them down the field, throwing the ball there. And so I do like him to go over 214.5 passing yards.
And the one that I liked was Chase Claypool under 39.5. The Eagles are very, very good outside. That is mainly where Claypool lives. I think that Kenny Pickett has eyes for George Pickens just as much, if not more so, than anybody else as he continues to emerge. So, and Claypool's another guy who's a trade candidate. So who knows what's going on behind the scenes there in Pittsburgh. And if Claypool's limited, maybe, he gets nicked up, right? And is pulled from the game because they know they're going to turn around and trade him Monday or Tuesday. A lot of things here that I think just let me feel pretty good about the under here.
Right. Yeah, I could certainly see that one play out there. All right, let's go ahead and head on over. We're going to play some more rapid fire here all over on monkeyknifefight.com. And again, if you use the promo code GOBFF, you can get a 100% deposit match up to $100 for new users over there on monkeyknifefight.com. And so this one here, rapid fire fantasy points edition, Cooper Kupp, Saquon Barkley. Who has more fantasy points? Saquon getting a 2.5 point bonus.
Oh man, figure Kupp's good for 7 receptions, 110 yards. So that puts it at 18. Is Saquon gonna go over that? I like Saquon. I think Saquon's matchup's a bit easier. The path to these points because he can get him rushing or receiving. I'm gonna take Saquon by a hair.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I do think that Saquon's probably going to see somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 to even 130 all-purpose yards on this one, or yards from scrimmage on this one. I think Cooper Kupp, kind of limited up there at about, I think he's going to kind of cap out there at about maybe 100 yards this week. San Francisco defense awfully good, and Shanahan has just had McVay's number when it comes down to it, and has found a way to keep a potent Rams offense in the past with even more weapons kind of under his thumb there. So I do think that we are going to see Saquon do that, and especially when I'm getting bonus points on that, absolutely. That leaves us to our next one, fantasy points here. Derrick Henry, Geno Smith. Geno Smith getting a 1.5 bonus.
I'm going Geno. It looks weird, but Geno's been playing just well enough there for Seattle. Even without DK, and I know he's questionable, but I'd be surprised if DK plays. I think I'm going to lean Geno by a hair. I think that 1.5 is really what's going to be separating it here.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be this one will be a razor thin edge when it's all said and done, but I'm going to take the Derrick Henry on this one. I do think that he finds a way to clear well over 100 yards on the all purpose on this one. I think that he finds the end zone once or twice on this one. And while Geno has been playing very well, we've certainly seen him slow down a little bit this last couple of weeks. So I'm going to take Derrick Henry to go this one. Alrighty. Speaking of Derrick Henry, let's go ahead and head to our next matchup here. We've got the Titans and the Texans. Titans favored by 2.5, over under on this one, 40.5. What are your thoughts on this game?
Barf, honestly. Tennessee in the under. I think this is going to be just as boring as the Jacksonville-Denver game that we're going to see over in London. So definitely not my fun game of the week to watch here. The Texans are still just kind of unraveling. And Tennessee's going to find a way to win, but they're going to win ugly, and they're going to be an under.
Yeah, I agree on both points. I think Tennessee figures a way to – it's not going to surprise me if this one comes down to the end and Tennessee kicks a field goal to win this thing.
Yeah, and Tannehill may not even play, right? There's been – they're talking about
Malik Willis
questionable going in. Malik Willis might get the start here. I think that kind of leans even more so. And for Derrick Henry owners, I hope Malik Willis doesn't play, because that just – I think that does more harm to Derrick Henry than anything else. But it's going to be an ugly one, guys. Not even remotely outside of Derrick Henry. And maybe Pierce. I don't have any want to play anybody in this game.
No, that's going to be a tall task there to want to play anybody in this roster. But I do think that Derrick Henry finds a way. Right, they've been doing some of these things where they do some check down passes to him and let him kind of get in space and run downhill at people. So Yeah, he's got a 11.5 receiving yards prop. I'm going to call for the over on that one. I think he can get that one knocked out in one play. So absolutely, I'll take my shot on Derrick Henry over 11.5 receiving yards in this game.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. I'm taking Brandon Cooks under 60.5 for many of the same reasons that I listed for Chase Claypool. Cooks and Mills have not been on the same page lately. Cooks also has a bit of a wrist injury, and he's a big-time trade candidate, so they may just decide to sit him this game and trade him away. So it's a lot of things about this, but I think that 60.5, as bad as Tennessee's secondary has been, I think they're going to be good enough to limit him if he does play, and if he doesn't, then it's money in the bank.
Yeah, I think so. Alrighty, Spirit T asking, do you guys think Pierce can be a league winner this year? I just got him. Yeah, he's got some upside there, but I don't know that you're going to necessarily see him, put that into play there where we're going to see him be that elite running back going through the playoff type of thing. Like I don't see that. The Texans are bad. I would think that Ken Walker probably has a better chance of being that guy than Dameon Pierce does this year if you're looking at a rookie running back. But I think that he's got some good runway for you. I'm just not looking for him to be a league winner when it's all said and done.
The biggest problem with him being a league winner is he's not going to be able to get in. I don't think he's going to be able to get into the end zone enough to truly have him take that declaration.
Right.
Now, these next 2 weeks are a little bit tougher. Tennessee and Philadelphia are both really good against the run. And then it starts to get pretty easy. The Giants, Washington, Miami, Cleveland, all of which are a little bit more favorable against the run. They have a matchup against the Cowboys in week 14, but the Texans always seem to show up for that one, right? In the Battle of Texas.
Right.
Then Kansas City, who's pretty poor against the run. You face this Tennessee team again in week 16, but your championship week's against Jacksonville.
Right.
So league winner, no, I'm going to come up a bit short of saying that, but I do think he's going to have a ton of fantasy relevance here heading into the back half of the season because they do have quite a few favorable matchups for Dameon Pierce.
Right. I would agree with that. Raphael over on YouTube, half point start, Sutton, Pittman, Foreman. I think I'm going to take Donta Foreman.
I think I'm taking Donta Foreman this week as well. I'm anywhere where I can sit Michael Pittman this week. I'm doing it just because I have no idea what we're going to see out of Sam Ehlinger. Sutton, his props 3.5, right? We covered that. I think he's going to get over that 3.5, but he is not being targeted like a true number one receiver. And quite frankly, the Broncos offense isn't good enough right now to be able to call anybody a true number one receiver. And I don't like London games. They score like crap most of the time. So I like Donta Foreman. He has the entire backfield to himself. May be a little bit more work to get there, but I do think overall you're going to have a greater return with him.
Yeah, I think so as well, right? Yeah, I think he'll have the most touches of anybody out there as well between that. Right, like even if Sutton goes off, you're talking – I think you're right. I think it's probably 4 or 5 is where you can see his receptions, but you're talking 4 or 5, and that's going to be for 60 yards on the ceiling, probably 0 touchdowns. So, yeah, in a half-point PPR scoring, you're talking about Sutton getting you probably a ceiling of maybe 7.5 to 8 points, 7-8 points type of thing. Pittman, funny that you were talking about Ehlinger. I've got a prop on him when we get to this next matchup there coming in there. That's not favorable for Pittman and Foreman. I think you're right. I think he's going to find a way to run all over this thing, and you're going to see him probably get 100 yards from scrimmage. So very cool. Spirity, start one at flex. Aaron Jones, Pickens or Foreman. Half point, full point, PPR standard. What do we got looking at that, Spirity?
I don't know that this sways it for me at all, and I think I'm playing Foreman this week.
Yeah,
like Jones should see a lot of run against Buffalo, but I don't think the yards are going to be there. So he might have 6 receptions, but it's only going to be, 25 yards, full point PPR. That does help Jones out. I think I still like Foreman this week. As crazy as that sounds, I don't like any of these Packers this week. And I think the Bills are absolutely just going to stomp a mud hole in them right now. I like me some Aaron Jones, but Donta Foreman this week for me.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that one. Foreman has a very, very good matchup there. And they managed to do some decent things with PJ Walker under center against what we thought was a decent Tampa Bay defense this last week. Although, the jury probably needs to go back into the room and reconfigure that one there, because that defense hadn't been good. And I think that the loss of Shaquille Barrett probably dooms their playoff chances. Well, dooms a Super Bowl run. They're playing in such a weak conference there that they could pull NFC South is the new NFC least type of thing. But anyway, moving on. We'll go ahead and head right to our next matchup here. Commanders taking on the Colts. Colts favored by 3. Over under on this one, 39.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking the Commanders. I trust Taylor Heineke more than I trust Sam Ehlinger, even with them being on the road. I think this is going to be an under game. Colts defense is good enough to keep Washington in check. I think Washington's defense is good enough to keep Ehlinger kind of at bay here. So I think this is another game where we're not going to see a whole lot of points played. Probably some sloppy quarterback play, right? It's going to be frustrating, and it's just going to be whichever defense can create turnovers at the right time. I think that puts, they're going to set their offense up to, score some easy points, and that'll be the difference.
Yeah, Shaquille Leonard looks like he's going to be back yet again in this one. So, playing his second game, which, that could actually help this Colts defense. They seem to shore up and play much better defensively when he's actually on the field. But that being the case, I'm right there with you. I don't trust Sam Ehlinger at all. Like you said on the Tuesday show, I think that they did Matt Ryan a little bit dirty, but at the same time too, right? Matt Ryan was not taking care of the ball, wasn't finding a way to, it really just kind of a continuation of the quarterback play we saw take that one along there. So I'm going with Washington. I think that they've got, they getting points. I think they win this one outright. I do like the under. I think that this is not going to be a high scoring game there. Sam Ehlinger, I'm going to call for under 225.5 passing yards. I think that he is going to struggle in this one here. And typically when we see a changeover in quarterback happen, that's probably more likely to favor a guy like Paris Campbell or Alex Pierce from that, because those guys tend to work a little bit more so in practice than what the number one wide receiver sees on that one. So, until you see some of that chemistry and some of that changeover happen, I think with Pittman, I'm looking to pivot off of him if I've got a suitable candidate to pivot off of Michael Pittman.
Yeah. Speaking of Paris Campbell, I'm taking the under 34.5. I'm not buying it. Yes, they might work more together, but at the end of the day, I think the Colts are really going to try and run the ball and lean on their defense. I don't see Sam Ehlinger throwing it more or dropping back for like 25 pass attempts like that. I think that's his ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't see him over that. Of those 25 pass attempts, do we really think he's going to complete more than 17 of them?
No.
Okay. I mean, he's just going to be checking down. I should have looked at the Mo Alley Cox line for receptions, because I think he's the guy who might end up with like 6 or 7 receptions this game.
Yeah, you very well could be right on that one. Like, this Colts off
tight end streamer. If you guys need a tight end streamer, right? Young quarterback making his first start, Mo Alley Cox.
Right. I would agree with that. Spear IT saying that didn't even realize that Chuba Hubbard was out. That's a no doubt start. Absolutely right. And Chuba Hubbard, while he hasn't officially been ruled out yet, certainly trending that way since he missed practice today with that ankle on that one. So I do think that, it's a no-brainer to start that one. Next question coming in. Who to pick up next 2 weeks since Deebo Samuel is out? Romeo Doubs, Paris Campbell, Devonta Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, Marquez Callaway, Marquise Goodwin, Traquan Smith. I don't want the Packers this week. I don't want Paris Campbell. And he says that it is a full point PPR. Elijah Moore might be worth a flyer with Corey Davis being out this week. Marquise Goodwin might be worth a flyer with DK likely to miss. And Tyler Lockett's also banged up in that one there as well. Like he's a little nicked up. So looking at that, that's probably the way that I'm going to go if I've got to pick a name off of this list. But you probably have somebody else out there on your waiver wire too that's just as good, if not better.
I'm going Dobbs.
Okay.
As much as I don't want any of the Packers this week, Watson's out, Lazard's out. There's only so many people. Rodgers is going to be throwing the ball a ton, to be caught back up in this game. I think you can get some garbage points out of Romeo Doubs to get you what you need. Marquise Goodwin is another guy I think that I like secondarily. Again, Deebo, Lockett, got to go somebody, and then Elijah Moore. I think it kind of goes in that order. Everybody else, Donovan Peoples-Jones, I understand the allure, right? We talked about him possibly seeing some more targets since David Njoku's going to be out. So there is a possibility there. But Paris Campbell, my guess is run first. He's the number 3 option on a run first team, right? Especially now that Matt Ryan's not quarterback. Peoples-Jones, run first offense. And you're going to see Amari Cooper, I think, just dominate target share. Elijah Moore has been a non-factor, so he's really the number 3 on this team right now, maybe even the number 4 behind Wilson, Berrios, and Davis when healthy. And I'm not willing to take a flyer on Marquez Callaway. Traquan Smith, no thank you whatsoever. Good. Yeah, Dobbs, Goodwin, then Moore in that order for me.
Yeah. And you were talking too about the Cleveland side of things. The weather's likely not to be very good in Cleveland. If I'm remembering that right, I don't have that one pulled up right this instant.
Yeah, they're calling for thunderstorms.
Yeah, I think I saw where it's a 60% chance of precipitation out there with winds gusting 20 miles plus type of thing. I really do think that that's going to be a ground and pound game out there in Cleveland. Certainly on the Browns side of things, you're probably going to see the Bengals try and throw the ball a little bit around the yard there. But that one's not making for a great passing matchup there that they're going to lean on Peoples-Jones, I think, as well. So, alrighty, let's go ahead and head to our next matchup here. San Francisco and the Rams. So Niners taking on the Rams. Niners favored by 1.5 over under 42.5.
I'm taking the Niners just because Shanahan's had McVay's number, right? I don't see a whole lot of points being scored in this game. I'm thinking 20-17, 21-17, something of that nature. But I think the Niners find a way to cover. The Rams offensively have not looked very good. Their offensive line is in shambles. So I think the Niners pass rush absolutely gets after Matt Stafford again, as they did earlier this season. So taking the Niners, and if you got them at +1 when the line first came out, kudos to you. But I'm very comfortable with the +1.5 that they're sitting at right now. Or -1.5. Sorry.
Right. And even with the line, even with the over under and the line and both the spread line moving, because the over under on this one originally came out at 40 and it's now up to kind of that 42.5. I still would have taken the under at 40 points. These two teams, when they play each other incredibly tough, which is interesting enough to think about because you have two of the, arguably the greatest offensive minds in the league right now. And they always find a way to kind of stymie each other on the defensive side, with the defensive side of things there. So I do think that the under is an absolute smash on this one. I do think that the the Niners find a way to win this one and cover that 1.5. As far as a prop on this one, it looks like Cam Akers is going to miss this week as well. So I do like Darrell Henderson over 1.5 receptions.
There you go. I have Christian McCaffrey over 35.5 receiving yards. No Deebo means more McCaffrey usage, and I think you just brought in this new toy. You've had a week now. Let's see what you can get, or I guess a week and a half now. Let's see what you can do when you let the Ferrari out of the garage.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that analogy there. All right, let's go ahead and head to the next matchup here. You got the Giants, you got the Seahawks. Seahawks favored by 3, the over under 44.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm taking the Giants. They've been playing well enough. Their defense has been solid. There's just, I can't point out any flaws other than their team. Looking at their team, like you kind of scratch your head and go, what the hell? But overall, I like what they've been doing. I like the fact that they get Saquon. You know, they understand where he's at. Wan'Dale Robinson has started to emerge into more of what I thought he would be, but I think a lot of that's by the fact that you don't have anybody else. Kenny Galladay's out. Sterling Shepard out for the season. Darius Slayton, big freaking deal. You traded away Kadarius Tony. Like, you don't have any options. Like, you have Saquon Barkley and Wan'Dale Robinson. Bellinger out. Right? Ankle, I believe.
He had an eye socket.
Eye socket.
He fractured a bone in his his orbital bone, I think, in his eye socket.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I must have missed. I don't know what I was reading then. If it was that, I'm on the
it's
half
stuck.
the body there.
It stuck out so much because they were talking about him going and seeing an ophthalmologist to get that. So he's going to see an eye doctor, and then I remembered reading something that he was going to have like an eye surgery to try and fix something like a fractured bone in the eye. And I could be way off on that, but for whatever reason, that is sticking out in my mind that is what's going on with him.
Fair enough.
So anyway, sorry to kind of spoil the injury party there, but I'm right there with you, right? I do think that the Giants find a way to win, right? Like, this team has been kind of perpetually disrespected a little bit there, and which tough pill to swallow, right? Because I was one of the folks coming in the season thought the Giants would be absolutely awful this year, and we would get kind of more of the same. We've seen Brian Daboll actually do some very good things out there in New York. I do think they find a way to cover the 3 that they're getting. I do think that this one finds a way to get to the over, although this one could be one where there's a call for heavy rains out there in Seattle with this one, and some potential wins out there as well. So this one could be a makeup for some great running, a great running matchup here. But I do think that we find a way to see an over on this one. And I also like Marquise Goodwin over his 36.5 receiving yards prop on this one.
Ooh, very good. I like the Saquon over 28.5 receiving yards. I'm actually kind of surprised that it's this low. I think he passes that in the first half.
Yeah, I could see that one. And I think part of the reason that line was low was just some of the weather reports that they're expecting to kind of come in there and go through. But I'm in agreement with you. I do think that we're going to see Saquon smash that over on his receiving prop. All righty, Trophy Smack. So here at the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast, we are all about the cash and trophies. And down in the description on the audio podcast, on the YouTube channel, you can find the link to it. And, by clicking that link, you can go on there, order yourself a customized trophy there. And it helps the boys out there. You want a customized belt, a ring, Trophy Smack has you covered. Go ahead and head on over there and check out the selection. They've got some absolutely very fun things over there. Even if you, don't, even if you happen to win the consolation, you win the first round pick on that one, you can get yourself a memorial trophy for winning the first round draft pick or the first overall draft pick the next season there. So you can find a way to get your trophy even if you came in dead last. There you go. All righty, let's go ahead and head on over into the next matchup here. We got Green Bay. We got Buffalo. The Packers and Bills squaring off. Bills favored by 11 on this one. Over under 47.5. What are your thoughts here?
Bills over. Like I said earlier, I think they stomp a mud hole in the Packers on this one. I think It is just going to be too much for the Packers defense to ask to contain Buffalo's offense. And again, no Alan Lazard, no Christian Watson. A.J. Dillon hasn't really been a part of anything. I'm sure the Packers are going to try and run the ball, but they're going to get behind early, I think, right? And they're going to be forced out of game script. So Dobbs in garbage time, I think, is utilized. Robert Tonyan, I think, is a tight end streaming play or pivot move. A guy who I think is going to see quite a bit of target share in this game just because of lack of passing options. But it's going to be ugly for Green Bay, and I think it's going to get there quick.
Yes. I'm 100% in agreement with you that this one's going to be over, and this one might be over early third quarter, if not even by halftime type of thing. But I can see the over getting there, and it wouldn't surprise me if we could see, if we see Buffalo hang 40 points on this one. I absolutely think that they can just run roughshod over this one. So I'm going to take Buffalo to cover this one. I'm going to take the over. Prop on this one I really liked was Josh Allen over 277.5 passing yards.
Very good. I like the other side. I like Devin Singletary over 55.5 rushing yards. I think the fourth quarter, we're going to see a lot of Singletary there wearing that Packers defense out, who hasn't been very good against the run. So I think Singletary finds a way to gash him here in the second half.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think he's going to get plenty of opportunity to do it too. All righty, let's go ahead and we're going to head on over into the Monday night game where the Bengals take on the Browns. Battle of Ohio. And the Bengals favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 45. No Jamar Chase in this one, like we already said there. But what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I like the Bengals still in this game. I think that they're going to find a way to pivot. Defense has been playing a bit better. How well can they contain Nick Chubb is going to be the biggest question and what determines the game for them. But overall, I think that the Bengals find a way to rally without their star wide receiver. You still have T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst, and Joe Mixon. So even without Jamar Chase, tons of offensive weapons.
Agreed. I think Cincinnati finds a way to get this one done. I do think that you find the over in this one, even in a game that could be a little sloppy on the weather side of things, right? We were just kind of talking about that one. Some wind, some potential rain on that one. I do think that Cleveland is going to do everything they can to try and just unleash Nick Chubb. And the over, the prop that I really liked on him was over 82.5 rushing yards in this matchup.
I took the Joe Mixon over 65.5 rushing yards in this matchup. I think that they're going to lean a little bit heavier on him. Weather will play a good factor into that. But I do think that we're going to see some more designed actual run plays. It's seemingly working better for them out of shotgun, right? You spread the defense out, you run the ball out of shotgun. I think we're going to see some more of that still. And the Browns have been giving up on the ground fairly generously.
Yes, they have. That was one of those I saw that you had that prop in there. And I was like, oh, that one is a smash. And I think that it is going to do wonders for you. So I like that one a lot. A couple of questions coming in here. Terry asking, Amari Cooper, Stevenson, or Christian Kirk, pick one. I think I lean Stevenson. So consensus on that one for you, Terry. Terry also asking, trade Chris Olave for Pittman. Man,
I want Olave.
Yeah, I think so too.
I trust Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton more so than I trust Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah. Yeah, and Chris Olave has just been getting the targets. So yes, I'm going to lean that way as well. Alrighty, best ad and stash, James Cook or Dearness Johnson. Yeah, if Kareem Hunt doesn't get traded on by Tuesday, Dearness Johnson is not going to do much for you there. James Cook, I don't know that you're going to see much there either. Devin Singletary seems to be doing just enough for him, and Buffalo seems to really like doing this three-headed, kind of roll them out and do some of that. But neither one of those guys. Dearness Johnson, if Nick Chubb goes down, sure, he's gonna have a big game there. But I think you probably I don't know that I'm looking to try and bank on a add and stash on either one of those guys.
I'd take the flyer on Johnson because if Chubb gets nicked up and misses a game, we've seen that it's not Hunt that takes over Chubb's role.
Right.
It's Johnson who takes over Chubb's role. And if Hunt gets traded, I think that's the most likely of options. James Cook is just not quite developing how we thought it would, right? Singletary is doing a really good job keeping him at arm's length and taking the lead duties of that backfield. And he hasn't done anything to lose the job. And sometimes that's what it's all about in the NFL is he hasn't given James Cook the opportunity to come in and do anything because Singletary's been doing a damn fine job. So Johnson is the stash play.
Okay. I like it. Kevin asking Pitts or Dulcich. Yeah, Pitts certainly has the name value on this one, but Atlanta, they seem very content to keep Marcus Mariota throwing the ball, 15 times or less on this one, which, we talk consistently about, not having much of a piece of the puzzle or not having a very big pie. Atlanta has almost no pie when it comes to the passing offense. Denver at least is going to be throwing the ball, and they've got $250 million invested in a quarterback that seemingly can't find the end zone. But I don't know. I could go either route on this one. Pitts, I'm going to take the long-term value of Pitts on that one. But I'd probably take Dulcich as a streamer play this week. Take it as a shot in the dark.
Yeah, I think the two of them are pretty well back-to-back in rankings, right? Like Dulcich has done well these last couple weeks. He's seen a couple, decent games, one from Russ and one from Rippon. So you have that going for you. I think Pitts. I'm taking Pitts by a hair, and it's not incredibly much, and I don't blame anybody if they're frustrated with Kyle Pitts, and this is a new toy for them to pivot to, but eventually we're going to see Pitts with more than, 3 targets a game. Like he should be seeing 5 to 8 targets a game from that tight end position. And if not, they just wasted a first-round pick, right? Like I know you brought this new coach in and you're kind of changing things up a little bit, but what in the heck is the point of Kyle Pitts and taking him 4th overall if you're not going to utilize him? Like eventually the GM has to come down and say enough of this crap. Like throw the damn ball. Like, you can't just run it 60 times a game.
Right, and for the for the Falcons, they would have been right if you're going to do that, you took him ahead of guys like Jalen Waddle, guys like Jamar Chase, but you also took him in front of who was highly regarded as the number 1 lineman prospect in that class, Penny Sewell, who's been doing pretty well out there in Detroit this year. And with the makeup of your squad, if you're looking to run the ball as much as Atlanta is seemingly wanting to do, shoot like that. That very well would have made more sense to go that route than, the Lions taking Sewell 2 picks behind you
right
when you take Pitts. Anyway, kind of some revisionist history there, I guess. But alrighty, guys, if you have any other questions, comments, anything like that, let's throw them out there. Let's talk about these things. Help you guys get ready, set to rock and roll here, week 8, as we take kind of the first step in the back half of the fantasy football season. And we start making our march towards the end zone here, and trying to put a W on the board and cash and trophies in the on the mantle and in the pocket here. But Kevin, any other thoughts here as far as anything else to touch on?
Just keep combing the waiver wire. Obviously, this week's proving to be a little bit more challenging, right? With Jamar Chase going down, Deebo Samuel not playing. All the trade rumors of where guys may go, may not go. It doesn't look like Zeke's going to play this week. The Packers offense, you're missing Alan Lazard for some folks, right? Because he's going down. So a little bit interesting here in the middle of the season, right? This is where your lineup depth that you've acquired, drafted, picked up off the free agent wire, all those things kind of comes into play. You're navigating injuries, you're navigating bye weeks. So stick with it. If you have any questions, let us know. We're more than happy to give our opinions to try and aid you best we can. But mainly, please be sure to like and subscribe this free independent podcast because we do it because we want you to win. We have no vested interest one way or the other. We do it because we enjoy this and we want to see you guys be as successful as possible.
Absolutely. Kevin, I guess one other thing too. We got Halloween happening on Monday here. So let's go through real quick and we'll just kind of, if a fantasy player was to go as a to dress up here for it being Halloween weekend here, pick a player and pick a costume that they would go after. And could be something fun, could be something ironic, could be, anything out there. One of the ones that kind of stuck out in my mind right away was Russell Wilson going as a ghost. He has yet to show up for fantasy managers this year.
I like that one. That is a good one.
I also want to hear down in the chat if anybody thinks of a fun one. Put it in the chat. Let's talk about some of these.
I think for me, oh shoot, I had it here. Yeah, for me, it's going to be Ramondre Stevenson going as the Hulk, right? He's a guy that we drafted after Damian Harris, and we told y'all not to, and it happened in our home league too. I got him 2 rounds later than the guy who drafted Damian Harris, and called it right there on draft day. I said, here's the real guy. RB8 on the season as of this moment, and he is crushing it. So Stevenson smash.
Here's another fun one. Gabe Davis should go as Pikachu because he's electric.
Ooh.
Oh, I like Terry's that he just put on there. Tom Brady equals the Blair Witch. So I like that one. That's a good one there. He could have go as Father Time too, and Father Time apparently has finally caught up to him.
Yeah, it looks like it's starting to, right? It's it hasn't been wonderful there. Honestly, Jalen Hurts is Mighty Mouse. Like,
okay,
just crushing it. A guy that kind of went in for a lot of folks thinking that he'd be kind of that back half lower end QB1 is absolutely smashing it in the MVP race, both with his legs and his arm. So smaller guy, Mighty Mouse.
I like it. Terry saying Breece Hall is Scream. Too soon, my friend. That's a good one. That's a fun one right there. I'm trying to see if there's any other ones that I kind of really like that. Oh, Terry's gonna dispute you on your Mighty Mouse call there. As soon as this thing pops in here, he's saying that Eckler looks more like a Mighty Mouse.
He's the real muscle hamster. Do you guys remember? Heck, I can't remember his name. The Tampa Bay running back.
It'll come to me. Doug Martin.
Doug Martin, that's right. Muscle hamster. Eckler fits that role too, man. He is a jacked up little guy.
Yes, and his workout, like his off-season workouts, are insane. Like right. It's just, and actually that's the thing that always makes me kind of wonder what in the world where these guys are working on their agility and their balance and everything else going through that it's just so some of the things they do is just, it's amazing to see that we're actually going to do this enough that we can replicate it over and over as a repetition. So very, very interesting there.
Here's one last one for you. Micah Parsons is Captain America.
Oh, I like it.
Playing for America's team.
Yeah, I thought that was where you're going with that one. Terry saying Barkley as Lazarus.
He has crawled out of the Lazarus pit. You're absolutely right.
Yes, he has arisen there. So, alrighty, I like it. Again, guys, if you think of any other fun little Halloween costumes that these fantasy players should be going at, put them in the comments of the video. Would love to hear and see some of these things coming in there. So absolutely make sure that you throw it in there. But I think that's going to do it for us. Any final thoughts out there? Looks like, again, right? And Terry said this in the chat just a moment ago. Make sure that you're monitoring the inactives on Sunday and rock and roll it that way. And that's going to do it for us. And again, best way to contact us, for any help, questions, anything like that. Socials: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok @GoodOldBoysFF. And Kevin mentioned just a moment ago, best way to support this independent podcast is to hit us up on the YouTube channel, the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button and help us out that way. But guys, that's going to do it for us. I'm Derek. He's Kevin. I'm sure we'll see him back on the screen here shortly. But anyway, Derek and Kevin, have a good one. Be safe.